God, I'm telling you, my dogs are barking today.
But man, my dogs are barking.
Into the My Dogs Are Barking podcast. This is episode number 11 on our series where we are previewing each and every team that Mississippi State is going to be taking on in the 2024 football season. And with me, alongside me, digitally, is Austin. Austin, man, welcome back to the show. He's been gone all summer, running around at summer camps and hanging out all over America. But man, are you glad to be back? And more importantly, are you glad that it's time for some football?
Man, listen, we're about a week away. I am so excited. I'm just ecstatic. I'm so glad to be back, just back on the grind of what the My Dogs Are Barking podcast. And I'm so glad to be here today with Skeeter.
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned Skeeter. We're going to bring him in. He is an awesome guy, man. We're so thankful to have Skeeter as a part of the podcast. Skeeter is the host of the Woods, Water, and Mizzou podcast, the official college huddle representative for the Missouri Tigers. And man, Skeeter, thanks so much for taking some time to be with us today. But second off, I'm going to ask you the same question as Austin. Man, how are you feeling? The football season is almost here.
Man, it is like Christmas. Right around the corner as a kid, that feeling you can't wait to wake up and see what presents are there. I know it's week 0 and there's not like any games that are just, sticking out to us, but I'm excited and ready for it. I don't care if Florida State wins in Ireland by 48. I'm gonna watch it.
Oh, Austin, we can't hear you. Go ahead.
My bad. So, listen, last year, Missouri had just an outstanding year, beat every single expectation. Eli Drinkwitz, what a year. And so coming off that massive 2023 season y'all had, what is kind of the biggest, the expectation coming in 2024, same quarterback, Luther Burden's still there. What is your expectation for this year?
Well, if you want honest, we did our season preview yesterday and did our game-by-game predictions. And there's a few question mark games, but I'm a homer. I predicted 11-1 last year. A lot of people laughed at me. We ended up going 11-2. I saw the talent that Drinkwitz was adding. Now, if you had asked me to put money on at the beginning of the season, I probably wouldn't have put money on 11-1. That was just me wearing my homerism. So this year I put 12-0. I mean, I think it's very doable with our schedule. I think we're meeting our big games at the right time as far as where we're sandwiched between opponents for the opponents we're facing that are our big games. But it's great time to be a Missouri Tiger. Like, I don't know if the buzz around the program has really even been like this. 13 and 14, we won the East back to back, but that was back when coaches recruited and built. And so you knew we're not going to be good this year, but next year we're going to be good, like that kind of mentality. Now with the transfer portal and the way Eli Drinkwitz is recruiting, you see depth all across the board. It's not dependent upon one or two guys. So expectations are very, very high in Columbia right now.
Yeah, and when you think about this team, man, you mentioned it, the people who are coming back, people who have been brought in the portal, is there a particular position group that and there's, I know there's not just one, it's hard to narrow it down, but is there a particular group that when you look at it, you go, man, I feel like this is going to be one of the main strengths of the team. Like going into a Saturday, this is something that fans can feel excited about.
Yeah, any Mizzou fan is going to tell you right off the top, it's receivers. We bring back everybody from last year other than a few bench guys, and then we go out and add 2 4-stars through high school recruits, and we've got 4-stars that are going to be riding the bench, and it's a great problem to have. Like, how are these guys even going to see the field? How are we going to keep them happy? I'm glad I'm not Kirby Moore, the offensive coordinator. I'm not Eli Drinkwitz or Brady Cook, and figuring out how to get all these guys the ball. So wide receiver room is definitely the strength of the team.
Okay, yeah, just on the flip side of that, what would you say is the weakest part? I know y'all lost Cody Schrader, but what else could is kind of like just a weak point in Missouri this year?
Probably biggest question mark for us would be secondary. Uh, 3 guys out of the secondary got drafted last year in the NFL, and both starting corners. So the guys that are coming up behind them, Marcus Clark, um, Darius Norwood, they got a lot of playing time. Marvin Burks Jr. Replacing J.C. Carlisle at safety. So there's guys that have gameplay experience, but when you're expected to do it week in, week out, you don't really know what that is for a whole season. So we go out and bring in Toriano Pride Jr. from Clemson, transfer. He's actually a St. Louis kid. We tried to get him hard back out of high school, but Dabo got him, and he has since left that program and came to Mizzou. So it might not be a true weakness, but not knowing, that's probably where everybody's going to say is our weak point right now.
Yeah, and it has to feel good knowing that, like, man, it's not even that it's that much of a weakness. It's just kind of a question mark. Like, there's so many different spots on the team. But take us to the matchup with Mississippi State and Missouri. That first half of the season, those first 4 games, is a great opportunity for Missouri to kind of get things going a little bit against competition that's not as difficult of Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vanderbilt. But all of a sudden, towards the end of the season, it really starts to ramp up with talented teams. But if you could take us to November 24th, so it's the day after Mississippi State and Missouri play, and for the sake of the argument, let's say that the Starkville Daily newspaper has a headline: Missouri beats Mississippi State due to what? How would you finish that sentence from sitting where we are right now in this particular matchup? Why would you think Missouri would get the victory?
I would say offensive power. Your new head coach Levy he's offensive minded. So there's a lot of question marks. Mississippi State is a hard team to read. I'm glad I'm not in y'all's shoes having to do the podcast. I can see where you could build the excitement, but there are so many question marks. You don't know the type of team you're going to field. And so I can see where y'all have a very hard year. I can see where y'all surprise everybody just because of the unknown. But if I had to say one thing's going to win us that ball game, it would just be offensive power. Everybody says Cody Schrader carried the team last year, but you go back 2 years before that in 21, and we had the leading SEC rusher there too, and Tyler Beatty. And people forget that it's more of the zone running scheme that Drinkwitz has implemented that has really become a strength. It's one thing that's really transitioned really well for him to the SEC. His passing game was where he struggled in his play calling. Stuff that worked at Appalachian State did not work in the SEC, and that's where we really hurt. And so bringing in Kirby Moore and Kirby being able to take over the offense and be able to stretch the field and really utilize everybody out there on the skill position set. So I look for our offense to be, the strength that gets us the win November 24th or 23rd.
Okay, so pretty much just on the flip side of that question, Starkville Daily newspaper, Missouri loses to Mississippi State because
Mississippi toward the end of November got a chance to be great, cold, chilly, rainy, kind of nasty weather, slow the game down. So it takes away our offensive power. You get some turnovers, and y'all very well could have a great year. I mean, it's so hard to predict this game because of all the unknowns on our side. So I'd like to ask you all the same question. Why would you say Mississippi State would win?
You can go first.
Sure. I'll start. Yeah, I would say if anything, it would have to have some sort of condition on some of the things you were mentioning. It's a tough weather game. People are, maybe it's an early game. Missouri's not ready because objectively, Missouri has, NFL, like supreme NFL talent. And Mississippi State at the moment does not. So there'd have to be some factors like that to where, Missouri is kind of caught off guard. I'd say if the best case scenario for a Mississippi State fan is that the offensive firepower is just really clicking, and there's just some big plays where Mississippi State gets loose. But oddly enough, the one thing that I would think Mississippi State would win this game would be taking the ball away, holding on to it, taking their time and having a time of possession. But that's not Jeff Lebby's game, so that's kind of a tough thing to to predict. But I would just say big plays and catching Missouri off guard would be the best case scenario. Austin, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would just to touch on what you said. I mean, I definitely think that I think later in the year it helps us a lot more, just because I'm really nervous for beginning of the year how our offense is going to look like. But I think that we would just have to beat out every expectation for us to beat y'all. I think just offensively, because in year one, Mississippi State really is not expecting much for Jeff Lebby, but I think we have a really, really bright future. But I think that everybody offensively would have to step up and really just, I mean, Jeff Lebby always talks about scoring from afar. And I think that we'd have to have a whole lot of big plays, like 4 or 5 big plays where it just really just determines the game. And I think our defense would just have to play good enough. And but I think it would just really just be like a shootout if Mississippi State were to win, because I think either way, I think it would be a high scoring game. And but yeah, if we have any chance of winning, I would just say it's us like scoring from afar, just like 75-yard touchdown pass, or just something that would just give us a huge spark and a whole lot of momentum.
Yeah, overall does not look good from that aspect, but it is good to be able to say, and for Mississippi State recruiting even, to be like, look, you're going to be able to go up against some of the best guys. Like Luther Burden is about to be drafted in the top 10. Brady Cook, like that's an NFL quarterback, so it helps from that perspective. But man, winning a game would that's a tall task. And Skeeter, I wanted to ask you, where we are in the season, we're all kind of thinking about our own teams and the depth charts and who's hurt and who's. We don't often know too much about the other opponent and the other opponent's fan base. And so I'd love for you just to take some time and explain for our fans who don't know, man, what's it like on a Saturday in Columbia? Like, what's it like to go to the game? Who are Missouri Tiger fans? What are they like?
It is like you've died and entered into heaven from my standpoint. So depending on the time of the year, the weather, we get fall a little bit quicker than most of the rest of the SEC. So you get those good fall, crisp Saturdays. The energy, I live in Northwest Arkansas. I'm actually closer to the Razorbacks than I am Mizzou. And but I got to go last year and watch us play against LSU, and the energy, the excitement, the university says we started the tradition of homecoming on an annual basis, and there's things to back that up. I know other schools try to disagree with that, but so we have that tradition. There's nothing like, the MIZ on the student side and the alumni section yelling back ZOU, the Rock M, and, they had to blast out into a hill to build the stadium back in the 1920s, and they had these rocks left over, and they made a block M up on the hill. So those rocks have been there for ages, and it's tradition that the incoming freshmen every year paint the rocks. So they just did that over the weekend. And the last home game of the year, if the seniors win, they get to go get a rock and keep it and put it on their mantle. And it's a program that has a very hungry fan base. We have been very close to breaking through to get to the national championship game. 07, we get to the Big 12 championship game. 13, 14, we get the SEC championship. So we've had our moments where we're knocking on the door. Just we haven't been able to break through in most of the fans' lifetimes. So it's a lot of eager, but it's also one that can be its own worst enemy at times too. I'm sure you all have experienced this. You have one loss or one bad game, and boy, the sky's falling if you listen to the fans. So it's kind of funny because we love our Tigers and we're so passionate about it. And I wish more people that talked about Columbia, talked about Fro Field and the fans, instead of just shooting off the hip of what they think it is via television or social media, travel up there and experience it, because everybody I've talked to that has came from out of town to watch a game there does nothing but say how it exceeded expectations. So I think it's a lot better than the rap we get from fellow SEC members.